Now, what is important to understand here as we're studying out these things and studying out, things about the end of the age, studying out things about the Torah and the understanding of Torah, we need to look at, yes, there is a death penalty in Torah, because many people they think that there's only a death penalty. Yes, there is one. However, there are blessings within the Torah. Let's turn to Deuteronomy 30. We'll start with verse 19. We're going to only read verse 19 just to get the picture. There's so much within Deuteronomy about the blessings and the curses, but Moshe is saying in verse 19, I have called the heavens and the earth as witness today against you. I have set before you life and death. And he says, the blessing and the curse. Therefore, you shall choose life, so that you shall live, both you and your seed. Now, I want you to understand something. He's telling human beings, mortals, that he's putting life and death before them. Blessings and cursing. And there are blessings and cursing and life and death within the Torah. But this is where the promise of resurrection first comes from. Because see, he is telling mortals to choose life. Now, I don't know if you understand this, but if you put life and death in two options, and people die, but yet he's saying that he puts life before them, what he's saying is that you can live. And we will see, we're going to examine some of the pictures of the promise of life in the book of the scriptures right here shortly. But before we go any further, I want you to see, yes, there's blessings, there's cursings, there's life, there's death, but something that we also need to understand is we, as followers of Yahushua, cannot implement the death penalty on anyone, because Yahushua did not do this in his own ministry. When the people came to accuse him, they brought the woman that had committed adultery before him, and they wanted him to tell them what was right to do. He begins to write in the sand, and he says, whoever among you is without sin, let them cast the first stone. You see, it's important to understand in the book of Hosea, Yahuwah references all of Yisrael as being a harlot. And in other places, in other prophets, he does this, and he accuses them of mingling with false gods, and he likens it to fornication with them, and likens it to whoredom. So what happens here, when Yahushua is in the midst and all this is going on, the whole system that is going on in Yisrael at that time is very wicked, very corrupt. And if he had to stone anybody, he would have to stone all of Yisrael. He couldn't have just stoned the lady that committed adultery. So he gives to us a picture, but also he didn't do that, and many of you will say, well, that was part of the Torah. But wait a minute. You can't do certain things in Torah without the proper order. And within Torah, you have to have a government system that is not corrupt, that is ordained by Yahuwah, and you have to have all the things that meet the requirement. And during that particular time and age, there were a lot of defilements going on in the temple. There were, Yahushua himself had to run people out of the temple for buying and selling, making the house a house of merchandise. So we see that it was already corrupt, and he was setting the picture, and they all understood when he said, he who is among you without sin, let him cast the first stone. None of them could cast a stone. Only Yahushua was worthy enough to throw a stone, and he shows us that right now we are not to do that. That job will be for Yahuwah when he returns. When he sets up, when the kingdom is set up, when Yahushua sets up the kingdom of Yahuwah, he will be given the authority to judge. He will be given the authority to make the call for death, because there will be a day that's going to burn like an oven. There will be fire. There will be a lake of fire for the unrighteous. But right now, during this particular season, Yahushua has come to give us life and show us the way of life. And this is also mentioned again in the book of Deuteronomy, in Deuteronomy 18:18. Deuteronomy 18:18, I shall raise up for them a prophet like you out of the midst of their brothers, and I shall put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And it shall be the man who does not listen to my words, which I speak in which he speaks in my name, I require it of him. And see right there, he's saying that his words that are going to come out of this prophet's mouth are going to be like Torah. And Yahushua's word, Yahushua said that that any man who will abide by my word, he keeps talking about my word. He talks about his word, the word that the Father gave him. And if we look at this, it says that he will raise up a prophet like unto Moses. Like unto Moses. Well, what was Moses like? If we look at the last chapter of Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy 34, we will see what made Moses a unique prophet. In Deuteronomy 34, verse 10, the Torah says this: "Since then no prophet has risen in Israel like Moshe, whom Yahuwah knew face to face." Okay, but we know that Yahushua in John chapter 1 verse 18 says, "No man has seen Elohim at any time, but the only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, he hath declared him." So we know that Yahushua has declared the Father, that Yahushua came directly from the Father, that he is one with the Father, and we see that he is this prophet that was like unto Moses, and he came and he gave us the word, and it says that if we do not abide by the word that that prophet speaks, Yahuwah will require it of us. Okay? So it all makes sense when Yahushua talks about the word that he speaks will judge us on judgment day. All these things. It's very important to understand these things. Now, something I want to point out is something that a lot of you probably have never heard, but I'm going to prove to you that Yahushua came to set us free, to give us peace and give us life, and that he will later come to judge and he will reign in the kingdom. In Luke chapter 4, verse 18, we see Yahushua has grabbed the scroll of Yeshayahu, who's in a synagogue, Yeshayahu being Isaiah, and he opens up, begins to read. It's important to note that there are no chapters, nor verses, nor punctuation marks within the original scrolls. I mean, it's just important because he knows right where to turn. And he turns there and he says, this is what he reads: "The Spirit of Yahuwah is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, and to preach the acceptable year of Yahuwah." However, now that's awesome. You know, he says, "I've come to preach the acceptable year of Yahuwah." This is the acceptable year of Yahuwah. And he's proclaiming it. But, however, I want you to look at what he's reading from. Yeshayahu, Isaiah 61, starting with verse 1, right off the bat. I'm going to read it again. This time I'm going to read all of what he says, because he stops short of reading a complete sentence. He stops in the middle of a sentence, and I'm going to show you why. He says, "The Spirit of the Master of Yahuwah is upon me, because Yahuwah has anointed me to bring good news to the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim release to the captives, and the opening of the prison of those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of Yahuwah," just like he said. Now remember, Yahushua rolled up the scroll at that point. But if you continue reading, it says, "And the day of vengeance of our Elohim, to comfort all who mourn." Now, what's important here is he is saying here, by rolling up the scroll and not saying, "and the vengeance of our Elohim," the day of vengeance of our Elohim, that he has not come yet to proclaim the day of vengeance of our Elohim. However, he will come back, and he will proclaim the day of vengeance of our Elohim. But the first time he came to give us life, to give it more abundantly. That's what he said. He said, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life. If you go through me, there's no other way. That if you come through me, you will find the Father." That he is the only way. And he tells us that he's come to give us life. He tells us, if you believe in me, that you will have life. That he is the bread of life. That if you eat of his meat and drink of his blood, which is not literal for all those who want to twist my words or twist the words of Scripture, that you will have life. That this is the new covenant, a covenant of life. This is the life. This is the blessing of the Torah. Okay? Because there's provision made for Messiah to come, for Messiah to give his teaching, and for Messiah to give us the option of life. That he told us that we would have life in the resurrection. Yahushua promised us that we would resurrect, that we would live, that we would hear his voice, we would come out of the graves. All those who are abiding in him, all those who are trusting him, all those who are keeping the commandments of Yahuwah and guarding the testimony of Yahushua, according to the book of Revelation again. So he came to proclaim life. He came in peace. He came in shalom. Praise Yah. That he didn't come and just, he could have came and poured out vengeance because he was worthy to do so. But he had to suffer first, just like David had to suffer first before he became the reigning king. And he will be the reigning king. He is the reigning king. He's already fulfilled. He is reigning right now. He will reign on the earth. He is coming. He is going to come. He's going to implement life on the earth.